Mossy Bean project is super easy for Chenille Yarn. So this is Hobie Baby Snuggle, 100% polyester, Chenille Yarn, 120 meters, 100 grams, and it says to use a 6mm hook. So apparently you're supposed to pull the fuzz off for like 3 inches. Okay, so then you have this terrible to see thread, but it's there. And you split it, and then you're supposed to tie it a couple of times. This is supposed to keep it from unraveling. So I'm going to tie it 3 times, because 3 is the magic number. And there's Evan. He is always fussing at me. Stop. Stop. And I'm not going to do the fray check now, but apparently there's a like a fabric glue called fray check that you can put on the end. So I'm going to leave myself a tail so I can sew it in later. I'm going to do a slip knot. Okay, just very lightly and gently. Then we're going to do a single crochet foundation chain. Okay, so I made 2 chains. Do not yarn over. Go into the first chain that you made. Now yarn over and pull up a loop, and you have 2 loops on your hook. Make a chain in the first one. Hold it, and then pull through both. Okay, you go over those 2 loops, you put those over your hook at the end there, make a chain. Yarn over and pull through 2. Go into the end. Make sure you have 2 loops over your hook, yarn over, pull up 1, and then make a chain. Yarn over and pull through those last 2. So this is a single crochet foundation row. And what this means is you don't have to add any stitches at the end of your multiple, because what happens is you make the exact amount of stitches you need, and you don't need to, add anything. I have to kind of focus on this because I naturally want to make double crochets. I've been doing a lot of projects with double crochets in them. So this is a single crochet foundation row. So make as many as you like. But yeah, I'll meet you back after I make my sample, which is going to be about as big as I want to make a pumpkin out of. I've done an even number of stitches. It's a multiple of 2. So this is 22 stitches that I've done here. I'm going to turn my work, because I was crocheting this way, and now this will be the top of my stitches. I go back into the last loop that I made, I pull up, and then yarn over and go through 2, and there's your first single crochet. Chain. And then you're supposed to skip 1, 2. Okay. Single crochet. chain one, skip, single crochet, chain one, skip, single crochet in the next, 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 chain one, skip, single crochet, 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 and instead of chain one at the end, just go into the end and try to get over 2 stitches or 2 legs on the end here. Okay. Alright, so that was your first row of moss stitch. Now the wonderful thing about moss stitch is you don't have to find your stitches. You don't have to fight. With a fuzzy yarn like this, it's hard sometimes to see your stitches and find them. You can really feel for them easily this way. So here you've got 2 single crochets next to each other. Just make this a little bit loose, go back in and pull up and yarn over. And so there's your first single crochet. Now you want to do your chain one and skip over this single crochet and go into the space between these 2. Chain one and now into the space between. Chain one and into the space between. So you're still skipping a stitch. You're still skipping this stitch, but you're going into the spaces now. And you don't crochet into any more stitches. You just go into the spaces. Use your chain to help you skip over that stitch. Okay, and you'll have nice little easy to crochet in gaps. And you'll go very quickly. It's a fuzzy yarn that will fill in, so it won't feel like there's a lot of gaps. Okay, so now we're at the end, and there's no more. There's just 1 stitch left after that. So don't do your chain. I know you want to do a chain after every stitch now because your muscle memory makes you do that. But just try to remember at the end you do 2 single crochets, and the last one is over 2 bars. Okay. Okay, so this is a row, well, the first is the foundation row, and then you have 2 rows of the moss stitch. Now we're going to do a level up with stacked single crochets just so the edges look nice and neat. You can continue on and do as many rows of moss stitch as you want, but I'm going to do 2 rows of moss stitch in between every single row of the bean stitch. So we're going to do the Mossy Bean. So okay, I've just leveled up twice with stacked single crochets. Now I'm going to yarn over, and don't go into this stitch, go into this gap here, because you're still going to be crocheting into the gaps between stitches. So here are your 2 V's. Here's a V and here's a V. That is where you want to be, boop, between the V's. So yarn over, go into that gap, pull up nice and tall, so it's the same level as where you are on your leveled up stacked single crochets. Okay, nice and tall. And then after you've, I went really quickly, didn't I? Okay, so you got to see it fast. Let me try to do it slow because it's important that we get this right. So you yarn over, you go in, you hook the yarn, and you pull it up to the height of your stacked single crochets. That's 3 loops on your hook. Do it one more time. Yarn over. And what I like to do is I like to put my finger here and just kind of keep that from tightening up. So just put your finger on this loop. Go in, hook it again, and pull it up. So now you're finished with your loops. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops. Yarn over, and again you saw I held it when I'm yarning over because I don't want to lose any of that height. You pull through all 5 of those loops. And then you do one more just to anchor it down. And that's your bean stitch. Okay, here's the next space. This is where we're going next, between the stitches. Yarn over, pull it up. Put your finger on it, yarn over again, pull that stitch up. You got your 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 loops on your hook. Go ahead, yarn over, and pull through all of them. And then do a chain stitch to anchor it. Yarn over, there's your space, pull up, yarn over one more time, and then yarn over and pull through all of those, and then chain stitch to anchor it. I think the real trick to the bean stitch, is to make sure that your yarn is really flowing. You know, no resistance whatsoever. Or very minimal. You want that yarn to flow so that you can get your stitches as high as possible. Because they do eventually start to sink down, and when they do, they get nice and puffy. And so I'm anchoring around my finger in the back here, often behind the hook. And these 2 fingers are often anchoring and holding the cloth. So I'm pulling down with my feeder hand. And this yarn has a real tendency to curl on itself. So it's important to manage your yarn so that it isn't going everywhere. Between here, this space. Okay, and now we're just going to do a double crochet. And try to get both bars. Don't just use the one. Okay, all done. You can switch colors if you like, and do your beans in another color. I was trying that. I don't really like changing color a lot and cutting color in with the chenille. So I was working it up the sides and I wasn't liking how the color was showing up the sides here. Just wasn't my cup of tea. So now we're back to the moss stitch. You go between the beans, doing your moss stitch in between your bean stitches. Really easy and simple. They're both multiples of 2, at least the way I'm doing them. See how fast that is now? Now at the end, you just do 1 single crochet in the top of that double crochet. Or I think that was your stacked single crochets. But just like that. And now you're ready to do your 1 stacked single crochet. Come on. Oh, there we go. Chain 1. And there's your first V. There's your second V. And you want to go between the V's. Right there, between your stitches. And you got to make sure you're not going into the stitch. It's easy to do. You just have to go in the gaps, not in the V's. And always remember your chain. That helps you bridge over your stitches. But if you're working with a different kind of yarn that doesn't fray as much as chenille does, and you don't mind cutting and hiding your ends, you could easily change colors. And it would be really worth it for the effect because these beans really pop. Okay, we'll do 2 stacked single crochets to start our bean row. You could easily do whatever you do to get up to a double crochet. Whatever you do is fine. Okay, so we don't want to go in here. We want to go in here, right here. So we skip over this space right here because there really isn't a space. It's just 2 single crochets next to each other, so you want to skip over that. And do your bean stitch in the space between those stitches. And remember, pull up your stitch, especially that first loop. And then you just keep on going. Oh, pull it up. And lock it down. One thing that's nice about this stitch is that it gives this fabric a little bit of stretch because of the nature of the stitch. The moss stitch has a little bit of give. It's nice to make things that have a less, stretchy nature in the yarn with the moss stitch, because the moss stitch is stretchy. It just has a natural stretch. So what do you call the moss stitch? Do you call it the linen stitch or the granite stitch? What did you learn this stitch as when you first encountered it? Because we tend to stick with what we know, whatever our first impression was. For me, it was the moss stitch. That's how I learned it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more. And a double crochet down the side. And now we'll start our moss stitch again. So you can keep doing this, and it's a 3-row repeat. Moss bean is how I do it. You could do as many rows of any of that you like. You could do a bunch of bean stitches, you could do a whole bunch of moss stitches, you could do 1 and 1, 1 and 1. I just think it shows off the bean stitches better when I have at least 2 rows of moss stitch between them. And you can level up the sides however you normally like to do. I like doing it with stacked single crochets, but you could just as easily do it with chain stitches, and that also is up to you. You could do 3, you could do more than that, you know, that's however you like to do that is up to you. But now it's time for moss stitches. So 1 single stack crochet and a chain, and then between your moss stitches. This stitch pattern is really suited for your fuzzier yarns that you can't see your stitches as well as just feeling for them. Though I have to say this Hobie chenille is actually pretty easy to see. I am enjoying it very much. And I've frogged it a couple times too, and it still looks good. And for chenille, that's saying something. Just don't forget what you're doing and start yarning over before you are doing your single crochets. I'm kind of routinized for double crochets lately. And remember, get your last single crochet in there so it doesn't shrink. And we'll do our second row of moss stitch. So I think this would make a nice pillow cover for the fall with this color palette. It would make a nice pumpkin if you wanted to gather up the top and bottom. And you can even, cover a little roll of TP. Make it into a little pumpkin and cover the TP. I feel like this is the hardest part of the entire project, is trying to find the stitches on the end, trying to find those legs, because it is fuzzy yarn. You can't see what it is. You have to kind of feel for it. But do your best on the ends. Even I have trouble with it. And maybe a stitch marker might help if I put a stitch marker in and go loosely on this end piece. Time for beans. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please like, share, and subscribe, and crochet your way today because it's the only time we have. I'll see you next time. Take care.